right, so we are going to send the kids downstairs, kids' church. Enjoy your time, guys, and call up the Africa team. Thank you guys for being here, and let's give them a round of applause.
Just grab the handheld there, yeah. I'll use the lapel mic because it's already here, so y'all can just share that. But yeah, I suppose I should introduce what's going on here. For those of you who weren't here when I gave my presentation, the first time before we left, this June, from the 2nd to the 12th, we were blessed with the opportunity to go to Kenya with an organization called One by One. And we went with them to a village called Bumalabi, where they have a children's home and school called Kings. And so at Kings, they house vulnerable children that have gone through some tough family situations, or they've gone through abuse or trafficking and stuff like that. And they give them a place to A, get an education, which helps them break the poverty cycle, and B, get food. Because with poverty comes a lot of the times a lack of food, and so Kings feeds them their meals while they're there, provides them an education, and gives them a chance to kind of break that cycle and keep them safe while they're there. So if you want to hit the next slide. This is our team. We went with a group of, I think, was it 11 or 12 people? 11, okay. I have the memory of a concussed goldfish, bear with me. And so this was our team here. As you know, you have these two, Mrs. Carter and Katie. You guys can introduce yourself at this time if you'd like,
Well, I've known Andrew since they first came. I won't tell you that story because I don't want to embarrass him too much. But anyway, when they moved here to New Brunswick, I was the cook at SCS. That's where I first met him. And we met Patrick, who was not able to come with us, last fall. And he's actually the one that told us about One by One, and he was giving this presentation about what One by One does, and he mentioned a trip to Africa, and right in the service I turned to Katie, my daughter, and I said, "You want to go to Africa?" She's like, "Yeah." So that's the way our story started. Andrew at the time was helping us with some music. We were going upriver to bless a church that we used to go to at Christmas time. And I said something like randomly at the end of our practice about going to Kenya. And he looks at me and says, "You're going to Kenya?" I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like, "I want to go." And I was like, whoa, wait a minute. I said, "We get back the night of your prom." I said, "I'm not getting in between you and your mom on that one." I said, "You figure that out." Anyway, the Lord blessed him with allowing him to come with us. So that's kind of how he joined our group.
Yeah, thank you, Mom, for not stopping me from going to Africa. I kind of appreciate that. Yeah.
Well, they basically introduced me. I'm Katie. I'm Laura's daughter. Andrew and I worked at camp together for 4 years.
Something like that.
Yeah. So we were leading worship together, and that's how this all started.
Yeah. So the rest of the team there, beside Mrs. Carter up there in the pink shirt, in that kind of olive green looking one, that's I don't know how to pronounce his name in French, so I'll just call him Silas because that's what it is in English. And then beside him back there, that's one of the students that graduated from King's. We went to visit him at this little equator point. He had graduated. He was one of the original students, and so he's studying, was it marine biology at this point? So that's really cool. He was able to get into a university and get to some higher education, which is awesome. Then you have, beside him, you have Gladys and Martin. They were a couple from, they're near Ottawa, and they work on, they have a fishing business. They had a charter, and they make flies and stuff. They're really cool people. And then you have Becky beside Martin. So Becky was the person who founded One by One, as I mentioned in my first presentation. So she founded the actual organization in 2011, and then King's was built in 2012, if my memory serves. Beside her, we have another Laura. Those two are from the UK, and then the one beneath them is Alero. She's also from the UK. Then beside her is Kayla. Then you have Katie, and then you have, oh my goodness, Karen, right? Bad memory. Almost everyone. But that was our team. It was an awesome group of people. I really enjoyed personally. One of the highlights for me was that fellowship that we got. I am slightly outgoing sometimes, but with new people that I've never met, it can be very difficult, but it was awesome. I enjoyed hanging out with them and getting to know the people there, and I learned a lot from this group of people, so I'm very blessed to have been able to go. So if you want to go to the next slide there. Travel. I think Mrs. Carter was going to talk about that.
So before we went to Africa, I'd only flown once. My husband and I flew to Toronto and back, and it was not a good experience. So I was very nervous about the whole flying thing, and Andrew said my knuckles were white when we took off from Fredericton.
It was like beet white, like gripping the seat. I could see that, yeah, it was rough.
Yeah, I was very nervous. Anyway, by the time we got to, I don't know, flight 5 or 6 or something, I was like, this is fun, let's keep going. Anyway, some really big planes. One of the coolest things for me was we watched the sunset as we were flying over Newfoundland at about 8:30 Montreal time, and I watched it rise at 11:19. So Montreal time. So we had literally like 3 hours of night, and then the sun rose, and of course, having never flown, never been on a mission trip, nothing, it was like I was just thought this was amazing to watch in half an hour go from black of night to, you can see the bottom small picture, that was sunrise as we were going over Ireland.
It was awesome. You can go to
Next
the next slide.
slide.
Yeah. So this was the first day we went. The first day was kind of just getting our feet under us. We landed in Kisumu, which is a smaller city, about an hour flight away from Nairobi, which is where our main kind of plane landed. The first day was just kind of getting settled. It was very relaxed. There wasn't anything super intense going on that day, but it was kind of an opportunity for us to get our bearings and get to know the kids. So, of course, having a lot of energy after having to sit down for like 18 hours worth of flying, I was ready to move and do stuff. So I ended up playing some soccer or football with the kids, and then we ended up playing volleyball over a power line, which was, I think, not a smart decision, but it happened, and nothing went wrong, so thank the Lord for that. And I got to know some of the kids there. It was really great. We got to play. They were super eager to get to know me and who I was, and they were asking me questions and wanted to know my name, and we were shooting the soccer ball around back and forth. It was really fun, and we got to have a lot of good fellowship with them. And then you can hit the next slide there. There's just some general photos of the first day, kind of getting to know. They were all gathering at the fence when we came in. When we came in on the bus, we came in the side entrance and went across this little ditch into where the area we were staying at was, and the kids were all like piled up at the fence. They were like waving at us, like there in the corner there, and they were super excited that we had people there.
So if you look at the right-hand picture, the house that we stayed in is behind the kids. So they have, yeah, we don't have a laser pointer. There's a little house that the mission group stays at, and then there's a fence, but the kids can, like, there's an opening, so the kids can come around. They just know that in general they stay on the other side of the fence. But it was really fun to kind of see them all gathered to come and say hi to us.
So that was kind of the first day. There's a couple pictures from that there of us just kind of interacting with them on that first day. They had cows and chickens just like wandering the property.
Yep.
You would be walking around and you just hear a moo from the corner, look over, oh, yep, that's one of the 3 cows that's just kind of meandering around doing its thing. They had a lot of chickens.
Yes.
And when I say a lot of chickens, I mean like a pack of them, like
probably a couple hundred. Easily.
Chickens just like running around in this big blob near where we were staying. And there was also these 2 geese. Mrs. Carter tried to befriend the geese, but the geese were not very receptive to that. They would honk at anything that moved by. I think Becky called them their alarm system. Yeah, the security guards. No one would get in and out of the compound without the geese seeing them and just like attacking them. It was a lot to get used to.
So the King's is a compound. So you can see in, again, the right-hand picture, you see the wall. The whole place is surrounded with the wall. How tall? 8 feet? It's pretty high. So, like the farm is on actually the other side of that wall, but then there's another wall around the farm. They have, so as Andrew said, the cows wandering around. They're wandering around inside the big walls. But it is kind of funny when you see, cows walk. They've got ropes attached to their collars, but they just walk anywhere they want.
This was, that bit was part of the farm. They had their own banana trees there, which was really cool. When we had supper, we had food there. There was always fresh fruit that was served with every meal. So we would have like fresh pineapple. I think, was there watermelon one day? No, papaya, right. We had fresh papaya. There was bananas there, and everything was like straight off of a tree or a plant or something like that and harvested that day because they don't have refrigerators there. So the chicken that we ate one night, I was sitting with Mrs. Carter out on this little bench beneath a tree, and we see this older lady kind of walk into the building with a chicken just like dead in a pail with its legs sticking out, and that was supper. So it was fresh, that's for sure.
Some of our team was not very impressed when we told them about the chicken legs sticking out of the bucket, but
Yeah. That is one of the other buildings. So that's one of the buildings. I think that's the one they have school in, right?
That's one of the schools.
So that is one of the school buildings. They have two primary school buildings. One is a greener tint and one is an oranger one. Yeah, that's the second school building there. They have two of them, and it's also the dorms. So the kids that stay overnight, they usually stay overnight a lot during exams. They will sleep in those dorms and live there. You can get the next slide there. All right, second day. You want to start that off?
Sure.
All right.
So the second day we were there, which was actually Thursday, we did village evangelism. And that was new for most of our team. We literally went out into this, like, walk down the road and you see a house and you go into the house, and if you want to have a conversation, you can, or if you want to just say, what can we pray for you about? It felt very awkward at times. How do you connect with somebody who lives, okay, I think that's actually one of the barns, but their houses are not much bigger than that. How do you connect with somebody like that? How do you connect when you walk into this tiny space? They have couches, the floor is dirt. Like, it's just so vastly different than anything I've ever seen or ever done. And the team I was on one team, they were on a different team. So we kind of split into two groups, and each went with an interpreter. We went one direction, they went another one. And a lot of the time we just went in and we said, like, you might comment on something, like a lot of them grow flowers or plants or gardens. So we might have commented on that, and then we would just like ask them, like, how can we pray for you? And they were so open to having prayer. It was such a blessing. Like, oh, pray for my husband, he's sick. Pray for my sons, they're at university. Like, and it was such an humbling and amazing privilege to just pray for somebody halfway around the world. You don't know them personally, but they're willing for you to pray for them. So that was a real blessing. The second picture here is, oh, can you go back a slide? Thank you. The picture on the left, this is cassava root and beans. And you see this in almost every yard that you go to. Just about everybody has a garden, and this is one of their common things.
When we were walking around, going to people's houses to pray for them, we were on a different group than Mom was, and we were walking through like a grassy like yard kind of thing, and there was a road a little ways away from us. And this woman saw us walking by, and she put all her stuff down that she was carrying. She's carrying all this stuff, and she like put it all down and like came over to us because she wanted us to pray for her. And it was just such a beautiful thing to be able to pray for her, and she just wanted prayer so bad, and it was such a blessing to be able to pray for her.
Yeah, absolutely. In that same group, we were walking, I think it was the second house we went to. There was this older lady who had been living alone without her husband because her husband had, I think, skipped town. And she had been bitten by a caterpillar or something like that, something that was making her like super sick. I don't know if the cut was infected or something like that, but she was like, her face was sunk in. She was very like not doing well. And she asked us to pray for her healing. And I think we went back to see her, or we saw her a few days later, and it was like completely, she looked so much better. There was her face wasn't sunken. She looked like she had a lot more energy. Looked like she had more muscle on her bones. Like she looked so much better than she did before. And so that was a really cool experience, seeing that after praying for her and praying for her health, seeing that change within like 2 days was really cool. Yeah.
So, I don't know how else to say this other than the Lord has really, really, I've had this for years, but a burden for African people. I just absolutely love African people. And one of the houses we visited, the mother was blind. I don't know how she cared for babies. This little girl that I'm holding is 5 months old. And the mother is blind and she's got 8 children. And again, you're in a mud hut. The husband skipped town. This was actually the lady's 3rd marriage. Because she's blind, the only way she can ever make ends meet is if she has a husband. And unfortunately, this lady is on, well, the 3rd one has just left her. So just unbelievable situations, and yet grateful, thankful, like cheerful people. It was just amazing. Chickens, again, everywhere. And as you can see in the other picture, that little guy couldn't have been much more than, what, 8, 10 maybe?
Something like that.
And he's carrying his little sibling, and apparently this is very common. The children are forced to grow up much faster than normal because they have to take over from their parents if their parents are working or if a parent dies or something, and so it's very, very common.
Kind of cycle through. There's some other pictures there of just when we were out doing stuff that day. That's the medical center. I think Katie was going to talk about that.
Yeah, so I got to visit the medical center twice. We went one day to, we just listened, but the organization, Becky, went and talked to the staff of the medical center about being aware of human trafficking and what it might look like, because a trafficker won't let someone they've trafficked call somebody for help or go see somebody, but they probably will let them go to a medical center to keep them healthy. So that they talked to the staff about being aware of it and what to do if you see signs of it and stuff like that. Are there more pictures? Or is that it? No. Can you go to the next slide? So this is our group with all of the staff of the medical center. Is there more? Oh, okay. Here's inside the medical center. Looks very, very, very different than our hospitals. I was slightly shocked. This is the price list. So it used to be that whatever you went in for, you paid for it. And now almost everything is free. There's a few things that you still have to pay for. Yeah, an ambulance is insanely expensive and nobody can afford it. So usually they would pay, instead of calling an ambulance, they would go on the back of a motorbike. So someone, like even a woman that's in labor, would go on the back of a motorbike to the hospital. This picture here of the beds, this is the maternity ward in this medical center. So that's where the women go after they give birth. There's no vitals machines, there's no heart monitors, nothing. Like that's where they go. Yeah, so the nurses deliver all the babies, not the doctors. So there's a few doctors there, but the nurses do most of the work there. Yeah, very unsterile in our standards.
So, day 3, this was Friday. We did practice, one of the big events that we were going to do down there was what they call a dignity day, where they teach girls about periods and give out packages of reusable pads so that they can actually stay in school, and they teach them about trafficking and what to watch for, and it's a big event. So Friday morning we practiced that, and then in the afternoon, one thing that Becky is very specific about is that, yes, we go out and do things in the community, but she also wants her staff at King's to know that they're valuable. And so we kind of dispersed around the property to help with things that were needed. Katie and Kayla ended up doing sewing for a couple hours. And like, I could have sewed for a week. Like, there was so much. They have 200 kids in the school, and everybody wears uniforms. Like, one of the first days I went out and was talking to a little kid. He's got a sweater that the seam's all shredded. So, like, you could sew for probably a week straight just to mend the clothes. They sewed for a few hours. We can go to the next one. As you can see, I love food, which some of you who know me already know that. So I was like, I'd like to go to the kitchen. So anyway, yeah, we had no refrigerators, like zero. He feeds 200 kids 3 meals a day. No refrigerators, guys. None. We're making a traditional Kenyan food here. So we had to learn how to roll out perfectly round circles. He wanted them the shape of the moon, and they couldn't be Africa. He was teasing us that our first ones looked like Africa and not the moon. So anyway, that was really fun. You can talk about you.
Yeah, so my part of the group went and did some cleaning. There is obviously a lot of people wear open-toed shoes there, or no shoes. So a lot of the floors and a lot of the surfaces that people are walking on or touching are incredibly dirty. And so we went, my group, I think it was the biggest group, 6 people or so, went and basically just spent a couple hours deep cleaning the boys' kind of dormitories and the girls' dormitories. That's a picture of me there. There's more pictures. Yeah, there's more pictures of us cleaning, but that's the state of the showers. They were not very clean. That's kind of, I think, is that a before and after pic? Yeah. So before we clean them, after we clean them, obviously there's stuff that you can't really get out of the floor after it's been there for months. But it made a huge difference. We cleaned for, I think it was 3.5, 4 hours straight, just on our knees and crouching, just like scrubbing away at these walls and trying to get things clean. My back hurt the next day a lot. I am not made for bending. That's just my body type. But I did a lot of that, so it was painful. But honestly, I found it entertaining. We got to chat and kind of make some pleasant conversation while we kind of cleaned. We talked about life, talked about God, all that kind of stuff. So it was a nice opportunity for fellowship in the process of serving, which kind of gave it a different feel. I enjoyed it a lot, but that was what we did for that. You can go for the next. Sure.
Okay, so I think we're getting tight on time, so I'm going to try to go pretty quickly here. Dignity Day was Saturday, and if you want to just go to the next one, Jeff. One of the things that they do here is they do skits, mimes or memes?
Mimes.
I get the 2 words mixed up. So no talking, but it's a skit for the kids. As you can see, Andrew's playing the bad guy here, and he's just shoved Katie to the floor. Of course, gently. But anyway, so basically they do like a right way to get a job, wrong way to get a job, to give these kids ideas. They go through, I don't know if anybody's familiar with the term boyfriend tactic, which is the second picture with Kayla. She's wearing the black skirt, and Martin. Just different things for the kids to be aware of, and we can go to the next one. Again, we had 340 girls and the female teachers that came with the different schools. I think there were 3 or 4 schools. So there were a lot of people there. Again, I'm doing a talk, more pictures of the different skits that we were doing. Okay, next one. Okay, so yeah, Dignity Day was was a big event. That was the 340 people is the very first picture that had the 1 by 1 in Kenya on it. So yeah, they're really working to reach the kids and to keep the girls in school. That's the main mission there.
Yeah.
Who wants to talk about that?
Katie can? Okay.
There you go.
This was my favorite day. So it was really, really hot. So we decided we were going to get out the water balloons that we brought. We spent forever trying to fill them up because there's no water pressure. And we eventually found a spigot outside that we could fill them up. And we got 2 buckets full of water balloons. We took them out into this main area, and it starts raining. And then it starts thundering. But there's no lightning, so we just kept playing. Can you go back one photo? Yeah, and we ended up sliding in the mud and playing soccer and dancing in the rain and getting completely soaked until it really started thundering. It was so much fun. You can go to the next one. Yeah, there's all of us absolutely soaked. And the ducks were swimming in the water. That's how much it rained.
Yeah. It was like a solid, in certain places it was almost half a foot deep of just water. So it was a torrential downpour. It was awesome.
It was so much fun.
Yeah, about an hour, and we had half a foot of rain. So, definitely a different climate there. This was the 5th day, so this was Sunday. Sunday, I'm completely blanking of what happened afterwards, but we had church services. So Becky had asked if a couple people will be willing to speak for church services on Sunday. So we had 2 places. We were going to go to this place in the village called Emaravi. A group of people would go there. I wasn't part of that group. None of us were part of that group. But Gladys, as I mentioned her earlier, she was the one who preached there. So they spent a lot of time there. They got to fellowship with the people there and give a message there at that church. And then they actually got invited to the pastor's new house, which they were super grateful for it and everything like that. And it was like a 2-room mud hut. And they were so grateful for it from what I had heard. And they were talking about how much the Lord had blessed them over the past couple of years. Katie, were you gonna?
I was talking to one of the ladies that had gone, and she had talked to the pastor's wife, and this was their brand new house. They just built it. They thought it was so beautiful, and like Andrew said, it was a 2-room mud hut, and this pastor's wife told one of their team members, she was like, I have all that I need. I couldn't want any more. And I was so struck by that, because we have all these things, we're constantly wanting more. And she had, in our eyes, so little, but was content with it, and that it really stuck out to me.
Yeah. And so on that Sunday, the church that we went to was the one that was inside the King's compound. So there's a church that the kids go to. They voluntarily get up on Sunday mornings, or almost every morning, most mornings, at 5:30, 5 o'clock, and just worship together for hours. During the week, I would wake up. My alarm was when the kids started singing in the church, and we could hear the music kind of drifting over into where we were, and that's what woke me up in the morning. I got up at 5:30, 6 in the morning every morning, and we could just hear the kids worshiping, and this was willing. They're not forced to go. They're not forced to get up early and go and sing and have that time. A lot of them, they will willingly get up out of bed and start their day in the church worshiping God. And so on the Sunday, that continues from about, 5:30 in the morning, all the way up until the service starts, because they don't have, church bells, they don't have clocks there. So their church bells, or what would call them into church, is this singing. So the singing and the music will kind of come from the church out into the village and just kind of call everyone in. And so as I was talking about with people talking, Mrs. Carter graciously volunteered to preach that Sunday. But they also wanted someone to give a testimony. And Becky asked again the day before. I had not responded when she first asked who wanted to speak and stuff. I was incredibly nervous. I was terrified to speak. So I was like, you know what? I'll leave that to the confident people. I'll do my own thing. I'll go to the church. I'll enjoy it. And then Becky said in the morning, she said, does anyone want, or the night before church on Saturday night, she said, is anyone willing that's going to King's to give their testimony? And before I even realized what I had said yes. And Becky was like, oh, thanks, Andrew. I was like, wait, hold up. What did I agree to? It was one of those things where it was definitely, it was a God moment where I had no idea what I was agreeing to. And then I agreed to it and went through with it. So Mrs. Carter preached, but before that, I gave a little bit of my testimony. And it was this really cool thing where the pastor got up first, and he shared this little story about a guy, sells this rock and continues to find the value of this stone. And that story went perfectly well into my testimony, which then flowed perfectly into what Mrs. Carter was saying. And it was one of these really cool moments where afterwards, she called and said if anyone needed prayer to come up to the front, and two of the members of the congregation, or not members of the congregation, but people that were visiting, ended up actually giving their lives to Christ that day, and becoming Christians, and it was awesome. They had like music time for celebration, but I don't know if you want to talk more about that or do the next one.
So this is just part of our team did Sunday school. So there were 5 of us left at King's. So, no, 6. So myself, Katie, Andrew, and Kayla, we went over to King's for the main service. And then a couple of them did Sunday school. We can go to the next slide. Again, just more Sunday school. They played games with the kids. And then the kids all come back over to the main church. Next slide. Oh yeah, so this was Sunday afternoon. Okay, so Sunday afternoon, Becky and the other group from the other church hadn't come back, and so we were just kind of playing around, and I don't know if you can actually see it, but what was that, a lizard?
Yeah, it was a lizard, like small, like bearded dragon looking thing.
Yeah. So anyway, they caught a lizard. And then Katie and Kayla ended up doing face paint. We can keep going. The girls did my hair, which was really fun. And then the kids who were, Katie and Kayla had been painting, they decided they wanted to paint Katie and Kayla. So they ended up with all kinds of things on them. Next slide. And that was toward the end, the group of kids that was painting you guys, right? Yeah, okay, next slide. So day 6. Who's talking about? Okay, I'll start. This lady her name is Francesca. And I know we were going to do our highlights at the end, but I'll just do my highlight right now. This lady is absolutely amazing. She's in her 50s. Her husband died 20 years ago, so she raised her 4 kids by herself. And then she started taking in girls who had gotten pregnant out of wedlock. She taught them how to be good mothers, and then one of these young mothers decided to run off and leave her with 4 kids. This lady is in her 50s. Then a year ago, her daughter disappeared. They're not sure if she's trafficked or what the situation is. Left her with a 6-month-old and about a 2.5-year-old. This lady has 6 kids that she is raising by herself. She does not have her own business other than she just started selling eggs. 2 weeks before we visited her, she'd had 3 out of her 4 goats stolen. And I think some of the first words out of this lady's mouth when we met her were how grateful she was for what the Lord had done for her. Whew, I didn't think I was going to cry. Okay. I don't know what to say other than she puts me to shame. And I told Jason, I said, every time I want to complain about anything the rest of my life, I want to think of her. Because this lady is such an amazing example of trusting the Lord, acknowledging Him. It was just like I could sit at her feet and listen. 6 kids, doesn't have a business. She brings out the bananas to feed 11 people visiting her. Like, amazing. I'll stop talking.
That's fine. Go ahead. You can go through these slides here. That was mainly what happened that day. Was we revisited some people that we had visited for Village Evangelism. I got to speak to one of the guys I made friends with. His name was Oda. He was a 90-year-old man, still very, very strong. He was super kind, and I got to spend some time in fellowship with him, which was awesome. And so this is just some of the stuff that was inside the houses. That's Francesca's house there. Yeah. And you can just keep cycling through. We're starting to run out of time, so I'll apologize for that. But
yeah, so these are some of the little kids. The little guy on the right-hand side, he's 1.5 years now. That's her actual biological grandson. This little girl here, Ashley, she's 3 now. She's also a biological grandchild. Monday night. You want me to keep going?
Sure. Okay.
So Monday night, I'll try to be really quick here, was the last full night that we were there. And we had a talent show with the kids that stayed at the home. And then we had just the most amazing time. The way they pray there is everybody prays out loud at the exact same time. So of course, most of the kids are praying, or I think most, if not all the kids are praying in Swahili, and you're in this big building and you just have like all of the voices mingled around. And I opened my eyes at one point, and in front of me, there's this little 8 or 9 or 10-year-old on his knees praying. Beside me, there's another 8 to 10-year-old on his knees praying. And I was overwhelmed, like just to see the way the Lord was working just through them. It was beautiful. And then we had a time where we gathered, the mission group gathered in a circle, and the kids put hands on us and prayed for us. And then we turned around and put hands on them and prayed for them. And it was a beautiful, beautiful moment. You gonna say anything about that? Okay, next. Just more pictures. This is actually of the school. So you can see up to 200 kids there. Next picture. This was just another activity at the farm. This is one of their school programs. We can keep going. They have to cook their own food, and Sylvain was actually one of the people who got to taste their food to judge it. Next picture. So this was...
Day 7 was kind of a travel day. So as a bit of a time to decompress, just between our, once again, long, like 22-hour worth of travel back, we got to kind of stop, take a day, and just chill, hang out for a little bit. Day 7 was fun, but it was kind of just our travel day, so I won't talk about that too much just for the purpose of time. We went to a really cool little restaurant place on the shore of Lake Victoria. The food there was awesome, but that was kind of where our trip started to wrap up, and we started to kind of make our way home. So I think at this point, we'll probably want to end this part of the presentation. So sorry, we went a little long on this. I have a short message that I will keep it incredibly short for the purpose of time, but it's something that the Lord's laid on my heart, and I really think that I need to share this. So thank you for helping me with the presentation. But yeah, I'm going to be honest, I did not feel incredibly ready for this until last night. Week with camp was really chaotic, but I don't have any slides for it, so you're good to do whatever, Jeff. But the passage I'm going to be talking about, the primary one, if you want to turn your Bibles to Psalm 46, 10 to 11. I'm going to be reading out of the New Living Translation, so wording might differ slightly based on what translation you have, but feel free to follow along if you can. So the verse that the Lord kind of laid on my heart was, "Be still and know that I am God. I will be honored by every nation. I will be honored throughout the world. The Lord of heaven's armies is here among us. The God of Israel is our fortress." So I think just before we start on that, I think it's important to note that the phrase "be still and know that I am God," the portion "be still," does not necessarily translate to a physical stillness. So when we read that verse, it's easier to think like, okay, I'm going to stand here. Yeah, God, I know you're God. That's awesome. Lovely. But if you look at the original Hebrew, the word for the phrase "be still" is a word called rapha, which in this case, given the context of the sentence, refers to an idea of surrender or an idea of letting go. So combined with that, so in that context of letting go and surrendering, the phrase "and know that that I am God" takes on sort of a future tense. So keeping that in mind, to put it in a more in a literal way with that translation, you would have "surrender and you will know that I am God," or "let go that you may know that I am God." So it's easy to simply tell yourself that God is in control, right? It's easy to say, "Oh man, I've got this huge thing. God's in control. It's okay," but not really believe it, right? We get into the habit of telling ourselves that God is in control, but not genuinely surrendering to his will. And that's the hard part. God wants us to trust him. He wants us to bring our worries to him and lay them at his feet, but a lot of the times we don't want to let go. Whether you're struggling with financial stuff or something like that, it's like, okay, I'm going to trust God with this, but I need to do this, and this, and I need to do all these things, and I need to worry about this, that, and the other thing, and we want to keep control of that. We want to keep hold of that worry. And so, additionally, in 1 Peter 5, 6 to 7, we're reminded, "So humble yourselves under the mighty power of God, and at the right time, he will lift you up in honor. Give all your worries and cares to God, for he cares about you. A taxi driver doesn't have a deep personal care for the person they're driving a lot of the times. A pilot doesn't really get to meet the people that are in the airplane. You know, you're flying in a plane, you don't meet the pilot. But we trust these people. We have no idea who they are half the time, but we trust them. We sit in the car and we wait to get to our destination, and we're sitting there. We don't worry about the taxi driver's credentials, or we don't worry about the pilot's credentials. Most of us aren't asking the taxi driver to stop midway through so that we can walk to our destination on our own after asking them to drive us there. We aren't questioning the pilot's credentials mid-flight. So why on earth do we find it so very hard to trust the omnipotent, omniscient, all-powerful, omnipresent God who loves us to the point of sending the Son to die on a cross just so that we might have the choice to spend eternity with him? Why do we have such a hard time trusting him? We know that God delivered the Israelites from the hand of the Pharaoh. He brought the walls of Jericho down to the ground, raised Lazarus from the dead, and created our entire world with nothing more than speech. We know this God. We have a personal relationship with him, and somehow we refuse to give up control. The Lord tells us to cast our cares upon him. When you cast something, do you intend to get it back immediately? When you're throwing a baseball, you don't hold the baseball when you're trying to throw it. You don't try and keep control. The answer to that question is no. So often we'll tell ourselves that we trust his judgment and we trust his will, but when push comes to shove, we don't cast our cares upon him. We're not still, we don't surrender it, we don't let go. And I'm going to tell you something that happened to me on this trip to Kenya that relates to that. Now, some of you might already know this story, if I've told you it, but if you do, just bear with me. So on one of our flights, on our flight from Frankfurt to Nairobi, we were served airplane food because it was an 8.5-hour flight, and I thought I'd communicated that I am allergic to nuts to the flight attendants, but I don't think I did a good enough job of that. And so I get my food, and I start eating, and it's this curry. Now, I'm eating these things, and I see these things in the food, and they look like beans to me, just large beans, so I didn't question it, and I eat them. I ate 2 or 3 of those, and it turns out they were cashews. I am allergic to nuts, deadly allergic to nuts. 2 cashews is enough to kill me 4 times over. And so I eat this food, and immediately something feels wrong. My stomach starts to hurt, I'm getting nauseous, I realize that I've eaten something that's my body's not agreeing with. I'm getting clammy, whatever. So I get up, I go to the bathroom because I'm trying to, make myself throw up because I want to get whatever it is out of my system. And when I get in that bathroom and I throw up, my throat starts to close. And I can't breathe. I start asphyxiating in the middle of this airplane bathroom. I'm seeing black spots, I can't get enough air. And at this point, we're an hour away from the nearest place this plane can land. And I only have 2 EpiPens on me. The plane's probably only got 3. Or what, not 3. Probably only got 1 or 2. So it's not enough to get anywhere. We don't have the time to get to a hospital. We don't have the EpiPens. We don't have the resources to get there. I am essentially stuck alone on this plane, dying. And so I got down on my knees in this airplane bathroom and I said, God, I've got one option right now. You told me when I was 12, this is part of my testimony, some of you might know, that you had a plan for me. You told me that you loved me, and you told me to put down that knife and not end my own life when I was 12. And I've trusted you since then, and I trust you now. I know you can heal these things. You brought Lazarus back from the dead. You made the blind men see. You made the lame walk. I know you can heal these things. So God, if it's your will, take this from me. And I could breathe again. I started stabilizing. I could breathe again. And over the next couple hours, I went back to normal. But I was dying. I was at the point where I was seeing black spots. I was asphyxiating. I was dying in this plane. And the Lord healed me. So in that moment where I couldn't breathe and I felt myself slipping away, I had one choice. We were too far away to land. I had no antihistamines, not enough EpiPens to get there. I had eaten enough cashews to kill me 4 times over. I had one option, and that was to trust. My only choice was to be still. In the moment where I was terrified of dying, terrified of what my mom would think when she found out that I had suffocated on an airplane, terrified that my death might be alone with only God as a witness in this airplane bathroom, my only choice was to surrender control and say, God, you have a plan. And if that will involves my death, then so be it. And when I surrendered that in prayer, when I let go of control, when I was still so that I would know that he was God, he healed me. When I said, Lord, not my will, but yours, that was when he healed me. Not when I was panicking and worrying and trying to keep control of this situation on my own. When I gave control to God, that was when he healed me. Ladies and gentlemen, our God is real. He is a living, breathing God that is not just watching you from afar as we suffer here on earth. He knows you. He cares about you. The scriptures tell us that he formed you in your mother's womb. And he wants you to bring your requests to him. He wants you to give your worries and cares to him. But first, we have to let go of control. We have to stop trying to do things on our own. That's the point of salvation, amen? We can't do it on our own. We can't earn God's love. We can't earn our way into heaven. But somehow, the Lord loved us and sent his son to die. We have no control. We had no control of our destiny, but he was gracious. And he wants you to give your worries to him. But we need to be still. We need to surrender. And we need to know that he is God. Now we're going to have a short moment of silence and reflection before I pray and we move on. But I want to leave you with a bit of a question. What are some areas of your life that you are not fully surrendering to God? Maybe it's that addiction you just can't break. Maybe it's that relationship you're praying about but you can't trust the Lord with. Maybe it's financial struggles. Maybe you're living paycheck to paycheck. You can't find a way to survive. Be still. Let go. Surrender and know that he is God. I encourage you to take these next few moments to just think about those things and just commit, God, I surrender these things to you. Cast your cares upon him. Let go. Oh, that's a microphone. Let go. So I think if everyone wants to just have a moment of silence here, and I'll pray and we'll end. But just take a minute and think about that. Dear God, I know that there are people in this room that are struggling with giving up control on things. I myself struggle with that still too. There are people going through struggles here that I can't even imagine. There are people going through things in their head that I would have no grounds for. I'd have no bounds for understanding. But you understand those things, God. You understand the needs and the worries of everyone here in this room. You know them, you care for them, and you want them to cast their cares upon you. So God, I pray that you would just remind us that that is what we need to do. Remind us to be still. Remind us to surrender, to let go, so that we may know that you are God. Lord, you brought the Israelites out of the desert. You brought them from the hand of the Pharaoh. You raised Lazarus from the dead. You made the blind see and the lame walk. God, I pray that we would have the faith to trust you to do those things in our lives. And God, I pray that as we leave this place, that thought wouldn't just vanish from our minds, but that we would be able to meditate on that and meditate on you for the rest of the week. and that we would be able to just trust you with these things. And I pray that as we go, we all have safe travels, and that we would begin to, put you at the forefront of our minds. In Jesus' name, amen. Is there end of service song or anything like that, or nothing? Okay. So I suppose you are dismissed, I think. Safe travels, everyone.